Hey, look at that.
Here we go.
Here we are. We're alive.
We are alive and
We're
well.
alive. How, let's see. Okay, there we are. It always gives me a bit of a moment.
Look at all that.
I know. Okay. How's everyone doing? How are you doing?
Doing good. Now, we've had a tough week, right?
Yeah.
We had a tough week with our matriarch passing this last week, and Kathy and I were in the room. She passed an hour after we left, so that was, it's been an up and down,
It's
as
been
you
a
could
heavy
kind of
week,
imagine.
yeah.
That we're in some ways, she's been sick for a long time, so obviously she's in heaven, so we're excited for her. But
Right.
navigating life without her is going to be, her and Bill have been married, I don't know, 48 years or something, and we've been with them for 44. So it's like losing like your left arm, for Bill, it's his right arm.
It's really,
And then the
really
prayer that she provided for our entire movement is, it's gonna be it just feels a little strange.
yeah,
We're still navigating it.
totally. I mean, you knew Benny
People
for
are
a
leaving
long
flowers
time.
on their parking, on her parking spot, and it's intense. I just got out of a meeting where we're talking about the celebration of her life, which is,
Yeah,
it's beautiful, but it's also difficult.
yeah. It's mixed
Yeah,
emotions.
it is.
Heavy. Yeah. A
Yeah,
lot
I would
to.
say, heavy. Yeah, maybe heavy, but somber.
Totally. Yeah.
So, but we're getting through it, and everybody's rallying around, and every time we have a moment like this, and as you can imagine, we've been together for a long time, so every time we have a moment like this, sorry, only checking my phone. Well, because it's my PA.
Because I
Okay.
can.
Sorry, not because I can, but because of who just text me. Because sometimes they text and like, "He can't hear you."
Totally.
So,
Totally.
but it is. It's up and down, right? It's a mixed
I
emotion.
mean, yeah.
So,
It
yeah,
is. It is. And how profound Bill's message to preaching on
profound,
Sunday. Like, I
amazing.
feel like that's a message that will probably mark me for the rest of my life.
Yeah,
It's just, wow.
absolutely. I preached the first two services,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd say one of the hardest times in my life to preach. So
I
I'm
know.
preaching these messages, and I'm like, he's going to preach the third service, right? The streaming service. How is he even going to do this?
And you're having a hard
I was
time.
having a hard time. Like, how is he even going to do this?
Mm-hmm.
So then he got up there and just spoke from his heart. It was beautiful, and it was
Man,
authentic, and this
powerful.
shows the power of his relationship with Jesus and his love for Benny and
So
his
inspiring.
leadership level. Who could
Who could do that?
stand up there on 2 days or 3 days after his wife passes and just say, I love God, and I live in
Right.
a mystery, and I don't have any problem with this mystery that I live in.
Man,
It was
yeah,
intense. It was good but intense. Yeah,
totally.
yeah.
My goodness.
So
Well,
that's where we're at.
that's where
We
we're
should
at.
probably move on.
We should move on.
Yeah,
But really good to
yeah.
acknowledge that
The
for
Johnson
sure.
family's doing good. If you're listening to this,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I, it's great if you interact with Bill on any forum. If you say we're praying for you, but please don't like how are you doing, because that instills a response. He's got to
Mm-hmm.
answer hundreds of
Right. A
people.
lot of
So
people
yeah,
reaching out.
let him know. Just have a one-way conversation with him.
Yeah.
If you're going to do anything on a DM, or
Mm,
if you do have his private message, in any way, just make sure
mm-hmm.
that you're not requiring him to respond,
Yeah,
because
of
that's
course. It's a really, yeah, really good.
what people want to say. Hey, how are you doing? It's like it's
Mm,
a real question, but you just can't do that as a
right.
public
You
person.
mean well, but
Respond to hundreds, thousands of people.
right, a lot
We
of
got over
people.
2,000, almost 2,500 comments just on the notes I put up.
Yeah, I mean,
So I was like, oh my gosh, beautiful.
profound.
So many people love Benny and Bill.
Yeah,
It's so beautiful, really.
it is beautiful. Wow. And today's your anniversary
Today's
on a
my
different note.
47th anniversary.
That is wild.
And, I've told the
love
story
that.
so many times, but met my wife when she was 12, got engaged when she was 13, got married when she was 17, and we've had the best marriage. We've had a lot of problems in our life. I posted a little thing this morning, but, we've been through hell at least twice, been to hell at least twice and back, but it's just bonded us. And we never, I thought I should clarify that in my own post, but we've never been through hell with each other. Like, we've never had a bad day. We have had a few bad hours over the years where we, had an argument, and we were real people. You can imagine
We're perfect.
living with me would be
We
like,
have never fought.
yeah, you know me. You work for me. Like, I'm a passionate person who sometimes talks and then thinks through it. Yeah.
Gets himself into a bit of a pickle.
Yeah, even here, right? I'm the master of saying I'm sorry because I didn't think through my comment. But so we definitely have had moments like that. But Kathy's like an angel. She's so graceful and kind and hardworking, and we've just done everything together. Our first job. So I worked in a shop, and Kathy wanted to be a nurse, so she went to school and couldn't get classes. This is like the first month. And you don't have to work. I'm like, no, I want to work. And she went to school, and she said, well, I'm going to go to school and be a nurse. Okay, great. She kind of planned that like a year before we got married. And she went to college and couldn't get classes, couldn't get nursing classes. They were all full.
Wow.
And they said it'll be at least a year before you get into any nursing classes, because she took
Biology?
biotech. No, it was a prerequisite. Like, she did it in high school.
Oh, okay.
So that they could actually go start taking nursing classes, but she couldn't get in. So she was out of, she was kind of doing nothing for like a month.
Yeah.
And then my boss is like, hey, why don't you have Kathy do our bookkeeping? And so she came, did our bookkeeping. We thought that was just going to be temporary till the classes open.
Right.
She loved doing it so much and loved working with me so much that she just stayed. And honestly, from that day on, we've never not worked together.
That's crazy.
So we worked together in, 3 shops. We owned 9 businesses, so we were partners there, true partners. And then we came here and started the school ministry together, obviously with the team. We give ourselves too much credit with the team, but we were leading that together. And then, everything we do at Bethel, we've always done together. So literally, some people can't work together, and we're kind of like,
I know.
it's the only thing we've ever done.
It's pretty special. I don't know many people who could work together.
Yeah. Well, we have our moments, I mean, obviously, we're both pretty opinionated people. You wouldn't think Kathy is, but she's a pretty strongly opinionated person. She's quieter behind the scenes, but definitely has a brain. definitely has a brain. So
she's a smart one.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
So 47 years.
47 years.
It's just been.
What a day.
Yeah, it's been exciting. It's been a week. Bill's birthday was yesterday.
Yeah, it's been.
Like
full.
4 days or 5 days after Benny passes, he has his birthday, and then we have our anniversary today, and it's like, oh my goodness, life is full.
Life is full.
Mm-hmm.
Life is full on. Okay, well,
Here
today we're here for a reason. We are gathered here today.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to celebrate this day.
Yes.
Sorry, guys, you probably tuned in
bearing with us.
Get your questions answered, and we spent 15 minutes
and we
talking
can keep
about
talking
life.
if you want. It is the same program as usual.
Yeah.
We are answering questions today.
We are.
So while we are live, if you have any questions, you can type them into the comment box, and we'll do our best to get to them. But we'll start off with a few that people have already sent in. And just to reiterate, if you want to send in a question, on Mondays we put up a question box on Kris's Instagram. And you can go
I didn't even know that.
in his stories. So you can go in and submit your questions there. That's where we're filtering and finding the questions.
That's where all the responsible people are asking questions.
And they sure are asking questions, I'll tell you that.
Oh, gosh.
All right. Are you ready for this?
I don't know if I am today.
I'm going to make sure we can
We're gonna
see
try.
all the questions, too. Oh, my goodness. Look. Hello from Tijuana, Mexico.
Oh, wow.
That's where my husband is right now, and I
He
wish
is, and he's
I was
preaching.
there.
300 people. Hey, you're here with me. 300 people came to Christ yesterday at his first preach.
So good. And he said that another person on his team that he's with, every single person that his friend prayed for was healed. Is that not just
Mia, that's
wild?
So good. Jesus.
So good. We love hearing stories like
Jesus.
that. Yeah, so good. Okay, all that being said, question time. Okay, first question for you. How do I navigate a time of waiting on the Lord for direction and guidance?
Well, what's the next question?
I know. It's always got to
they're asking the person that has the least patience in life. Like, how do you wait? I'm like, I know I'm going to answer this question. The Lord's like, yeah, you should be doing that.
Yeah, you should get good at waiting.
Yeah. I think that waiting on the Lord is important in that we want to say to the Lord, you are the leader of our life, and I don't want to get out in front of you. At the same time, I feel like waiting on the Lord isn't just sitting around doing nothing. I think that it's often preparing your heart, if you have some idea of where he's taking you, preparing your way, and knocking, seeking and asking are just a part of the waiting, right?
Waiting process.
So I don't think, I guess I'm maybe a little bit reacting to some people's waiting is, I've been waiting on the Lord for 15 years to do something in my life. I'm like, oh, maybe 15 days, but 15 years is like, you gotta, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
I think I call it active listening.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I mean, I think sometimes we actually undervalue the waiting season because sometimes it's in the waiting season that our faith is actually activated.
Well, that's good.
Because
I like that better than my answer.
I think because sometimes it's in the process. Like you say this all the time. There's a process from the promise to the palace, and I think sometimes that we just think, oh, in the waiting, nothing's happening, when actually behind the scenes, he's doing a work in us. And sometimes we don't have clarity, and that's kind of where we get to activate our faith and go, okay, I trust you even in the mystery, even in the unknown. And trust me, waiting seasons are hard. I have been there.
Yeah, it's all part of.
Yeah.
You know what though? Two things that come to my mind as you were sharing. One is we're obsessed with destiny, and and therefore we miss journey, which is what you're saying.
Yeah.
And so you're right, because we think I'm going to have a life when I get this, right?
Yeah.
And then I miss life. And the thing is that there's always another mountain climb. There's other, so the Bill said it great. He said, I don't need answers. I need him. And of course he was talking about his pain with Benny, but I'm like, yeah, I mean, that's the goal. Like, who you're journeying with is the point.
Right.
And where you're going is almost, I don't want to say it's not important. It's not as important as the relationship you're building for eternity,
Right.
It's so good.
Yeah.
So, when you're in that waiting season where you don't know where you're going, I think the reason why the Lord has blinded our eyes often is that he wants us to deepen who we're with and not be so concerned with where we're going. Now, again, that doesn't mean don't do anything, but
right.
Yeah, that was a good answer I gave, actually.
Very good. Round of applause.
Yeah. For myself.
Okay.
Oh, gosh.
Okay, next question. I like this question. Someone's just asking, what are some current books or podcasts you're reading and listening to that you love and are learning from?
Well, I'm reading. Let me back up. There are a couple things I need to say. I don't read a lot of books when I'm writing. And it's not because I think, well, I'm so amazing, I don't need anybody else's input. It's because you homogenate that stuff into your writing, and then sometimes you can't. You think it was your idea, and it's actually from the last book you got.
You were inspired by somebody else's.
Well, not just inspired, but you might be sharing their revelation in your book. And sometimes it's hard, like I've read so many books over the years, and then like I'll quote something that I actually think is my quote, and people are like, "Oh yeah, that was in the Good to Great book," and I'm like, "Oh, that must have been where I got that because I've read that book twice." So I am writing right now leadership books, so I'm not deeply reading a lot of books, but I am reading the book that you gave me. In fact, I'm about 100 pages into it,
Good
Talking
word.
to Strangers.
Yes.
By Malcolm Gladwell. I love that book. I love
Yes,
listen, I love Malcolm Gladwell. So I don't always agree with everything he writes, but I don't always agree with everything I write, so be clear. But he wrote The Tipping Point. I love that. David and Goliath. I love that book.
I'm reading that one right now.
Yeah, that's a good book.
Good.
Really good book. I don't agree with how big Goliath was in his estimation, but I mean, the Bible tells you how big he was, 9'6", and you think he has like 7 foot something or something. But anyway, but it's still, I mean, his points in there are just beautiful.
Yeah.
And then he wrote another book did he write Outlier?
Outliers. That one's really good.
That was a really great book. So I love those books. I like Good to Great. By the way, I read a lot of secular books because they tend to be really great principles on leadership, and I mostly read leadership stuff. And then I'm with the best preachers in the world. Honestly, on our team. So I'm hearing Bill and Danny and all these guys, Banning and Dan Fairley and all these guys. So I'm constantly hearing the spiritual side a lot. So I think that it's good to have a good balance, and as far as like just listening to people who are doing business and leadership.
Really good. Someone says they really love all your books.
Oh, thank you.
Shout out. You are an excellent writer.
I love to write, that's for sure.
I love writing too.
Yeah, I'm really the book we just finished, which is going to be out. This coming month.
You can order it actually on Amazon.
Oh, you
currently.
can already.
Yeah. You can tell them.
Uprising. What is the subtitle?
It's Uprising: The Epic Battle for the Most Fatherless Generation
in History. Yeah, it's really a good book. You're gonna really like it, and
it's profound.
There are some real profound points in it. It's really an exhortation on the epoch season we're in history, and it outlines the first half of the book is, I think, really challenging in that I think it's going to be shocking and surprising to some people what first of all, how fatherless this generation is. Fox News just came out with an article 2 weeks ago, which was way after I finished the book, and they did a survey and found that America's the most fatherless country in the world right now.
That is actually
which I wish I would have had that from my book, because that was such a great point. And then what are the side effects of fatherlessness? And then the second half of the book is, all right, what do we do about it? Because we got so many, single moms out there going, great, my kids are doomed. And, that's not true.
That's not how it works. Yeah.
But it's good to know you can't really solve a problem that you don't really know what the problem is.
Right. Yeah, you do a really excellent job of outlining.
Yeah, I really am proud of that book, and you guys, gave input into that book, and then our editors did a wonderful job helping to clarify and ask hard questions as I was writing it. Like, you didn't speak to this, and how are you going to solve that? And so a lot of people put a lot of work into it with me, which I'm really satisfied with. But anyway, I think that it definitely for the season, it might be the most important book I've ever written.
It's really, really good.
And now I'm writing a practical book on leadership, because there's just a lot of people, I meet so many people that they're asking right questions all the time about leadership. And I'm like, these are pretty simple questions, most of them. And then some of them are more complex. How do you build teams? How do you develop strategy? What do you do with people who are on board? Just the daily grind of leadership can be challenging. So, we've had so much experience, and the experience of my teams. I'm hoping to homogenate some of the things I've learned from them, and then and have it all in that book.
So good. Excited for that.
Yeah, I am really excited about that.
Okay. On topic of leadership, somebody asked, what is something significant that you've learned about being teachable as a leader?
Well, the day you stop learning is the day you start dying.
Wow.
Honestly, I know that's not my quote, but that's one of the most important quotes in leadership is when you stop learning, you start dying.
Mm.
And there's no such thing as coming to the pinnacle. It's like numbers, like they're infinite. And I think leadership is infinite on what we can learn from other people and obviously from the Lord and from the Bible. But leading people in my mind is it's about, changing the world together. And, how do we motivate people towards a positive end? And how do we get people, so many people, my own kids and grandkids are great examples of, they're young. So they're coming up and they're like, what am I born for? Why am I alive? And, what is my purpose? And I'll say in my own life, when we were in business, we love business, and I just felt the season like we're making a living, but are we making a difference? And I think we were making a difference looking back, but I there was a bigger impact that I felt I was born for. And all of that comes with, leadership is about helping other people find their purpose and destiny and building big people and accomplishing things for eternity.
Yeah.
And so, how do you do that? And I think that's really important.
It's really good.
So you have to stay teachable.
Yeah, staying teachable.
You have to stay teachable, and that's why, like, we're doing this podcast together, and I think it was like a few months ago, I'm like, you know what, you need to be answering these questions too, because not only are you smart and highly educated, but also you're doing life as a young person, and I'm doing life as an old person, and I have a lot of history on what was, but you have a lot of experience on what is. And so I think that, I learn from you all the time. I learn from my team. Almost all my team is young. It's kind of hard to find people alive that are my age. So I think it's,
that's
learning.
really inspiring to hear you say. I think to hear a leader that obviously has so much wisdom and older than most of his team say, oh, I'm actually learning. I come in, it just shows how humble and how much humility you can walk in as you receive from your own team. It's really beautiful.
Well, it saves you from, saves your butt.
Yeah.
We have our team meetings, right? We have a weekly team meeting. I'm always asking the team, what do you think about that? Do you think that's the right decision I'm making? So, it's just like, it's like, how do you not stay teachable? I don't know.
So good. Profound. Okay, somebody's asked, how do you balance going after world-changing work with God and stopping to love the individuals you encounter along the way? How do you not get too wrapped up in the work? I'm assuming the work meaning the world-changing work.
Well, it's both, right? The Good Samaritan's a great story of somebody who was really busy. He did what he could in the moment, bandaged the guy up, but he didn't have time to take care of him. So he paid. In his case, he had more money than time. So he's like, okay, I did what I could. And then he takes him to the inn, which would be equal to our hospital. And said, hey, when I return, I'll pay you for whatever it took to take care of this man. And so, I think that's, it's so, for me, I'm this, I hate this, it sounds rude, but I don't have very much time for people, for other things. We have 700 people, we're leading through a very tumultuous time, all the things that we've been through. Obviously with Benny, but, also just the daily life of having 700 employees, and then we had COVID. And we had, Black Lives Matter, the social justice issues, and then we have the LGBTQ thing constantly going on. And so, and then we have our love for our own city and interacting with our city leaders, which is a big part of the call on my own life, and with our, state and national leaders. And all that, you can't do everything.
Right.
You can't do everything. For the first 20 years of our marriage, for 17 years, someone lived with us. So only 3 years was it just our family. Like literally for 17 years, we had someone else in our home.
Yeah.
And so, it's like we went through a season where our life was about one-on-ones, and we weren't leading a big movement. Now, I don't even honestly open the door to my neighbors. I mean, I'm friendly and say hi,
Right.
but I mean, I have to have a place for a break. So
You
there's
have to
both,
protect
right?
that. Yeah.
And so I feel like my ministry is more like the Good Samaritan. Often I'm like, okay, guys, how do we take care of that person? And can we pay for that? And can someone take care of that? And I'm more like, a conductor than I am like, I'll take care of that. Just because we work 10, 11, 12 hours a day, and we do that at least 5.5, 6 days a week.
Yeah.
I mean, this isn't a job, it's a calling. So at some point it's a great question, really. It's probably a question asked by somebody who's doing the same, like, how am I navigating both of these?
Right.
And do I give up the greater good for the one? And, Heidi Baker would say, yes, you do. And I would say, well, it's both and. Like, I have the power to have a team that can say, can someone please reach out and help that person? At the same time, I feel like I'm called to something that includes more people, not because I'm amazing or great or I'm too good to do that. But there'll be a time when we retire and we'll be back to the one doing what we did for 20 years together,
Yeah. That's really good. It is really good. It can feel like a lot to try to balance everything.
Yeah.
It can feel like a lot. But you protect what matters too.
I try to. It's not easy. And then I have our family, and like we have family dinners nearly every Sunday, and that's a super high priority to me. Even though we don't do anything significant, usually no, we do, but we don't do anything like, we're not like, okay, guys, here's the Bible teaching for today. I mean that. We just hang out for usually 2 hours, have dinner, make small talk, very seldom is it profound, and then everybody goes their own way. But that connection's super important to me too,
Totally. Really good. Really, really good. Okay. Somebody has asked, how do you deal or react to angry Christians? That is an interesting question.
I don't. I mean, I did. I think this is where people could probably learn from me, because I'm one of the most overly responsible people I know. So, I'm like making everybody's problem my problem and trying to, calm people down, or like, that's not what I meant, or, you preach this thing and you said this and da da da. I'm like, that's not what I meant. And like, you can just spend your life trying to explain to people what you meant, or that that scripture, you didn't take that scripture out of context, or or just whatever. There's just people that are just angry.
Yeah. They're
just angry, and like they're looking for a place to have an anger meltdown.
Right.
And there's people that just they're mad at God, so then they're mad at anyone who represents Him. They're mad at Father, so they mad at anyone who represents them, and they're mad at people who stand up for righteousness. So they just so I'm like, I can't solve those problems.
Right.
It's like, I can't help that I'm white, that I'm a white 67-year-old male. I only say that to say these are some comments we got during Black Lives. You're a white 67-year-old male, like your opinion doesn't matter. You're not black, or you're not Hispanic, you're not Asian. So what do I do about that? What can I do about that? Like, I am what God created me. You are what God created you. You have to live out your life the best you can. I'm going to be ashamed because I'm white. So people are just angry. Do you have some? I mean, you experience them too.
Of course. Of course, you interact with angry people all the time.
Yeah.
People are just angry. I think, I always kind of go back to this spot where I just have to remind myself, I have no idea what they are going through. I have no idea what their story is. And I remember saying that all the time. Elijah can be such a, who's my husband, can be such a, like, impulsive, just kind of says what comes to him, and
where did you get that from?
I know, and it's beautiful in the right moments, and it's really challenging in other moments. And I remember when we were dating, kind of having this, we had this run-in with a random stranger on the street, and I was, obviously it's frustrating how that person responded, but I was more frustrated with the response of Elijah. And I remember getting in the car, and there was this aha moment we had of just like, we have no idea what his story is. Like, you can't just respond out of the same response that they're giving you, because truthfully, who knows what the heck is going on.
Yeah, or what the hell.
Right.
Because people are going through hell.
Totally.
Right?
Totally. Yeah. So it's hard, and I think even just asking the Lord, man, should I be saying something right now at all, or should I just sit here quietly? The funny is, I was telling this story today, but I went and got my nails done yesterday, and the person doing my nails, I just felt like he hated life the whole time. Like, I would ask a question, and it was like he was just mad at me. And I was telling one of the girls we work with today, I'm like, I just sat there and asked the Lord the whole time, should I say anything? Like, is there a grace to say something right now? Should I give him a word? Like, what? And I just felt like, no, just be quiet. He just needs peace. He needs you to be quiet right now. And I just sat there quietly. Sometimes you don't need to do anything at all. Totally. Anyway.
Sometimes you try to do something and it gets worse, right?
Yeah, you're just like, okay, that's enough. I'll just be quiet.
Jeff and I went to breakfast, and we were walking across the parking lot, coming back to our car after breakfast. This is probably 4 months ago, and this guy yells out. He's coming from his car, going in, and we're coming out the restaurant. He goes, "Are you Kris Vallotton?" And I said, "Yes, sir." He goes, "You are a false prophet. Wow. God's gonna judge you." And I was like,
oh, what do you say? Yeah.
Okay. I mean, what was there to say?
Right.
And 99.9%, like every day we go to town, people stop us and say, "Man, you changed my life. Your book, da da da." But you got to take the good with the bad,
Something that's coming to mind too is his kindness leads us to repentance. And so I think so often there's this instinct to want to be mad or frustrated or rebuke the person. Like, I'm thinking if someone were to be yelling at me that I'm a false prophet, I would become kind of angry myself, and should just think, well, it's his kindness that leads you to repentance. I mean, how do we remain kind?
I don't know.
Anyway, just a few
I try.
It's a tricky one.
It is.
Okay.
I hope I do okay.
You do.
There's a lot of resistance.
Okay, a few more lighthearted questions.
Okay, great.
Somebody's asking, I want to attend School of the Prophets, but I work until 3 p.m. Is there a different schedule?
Well, it's online.
Right.
So you can get it online live or online demand, which means you can watch it later.
Yep.
And maybe it'd be awesome if the groups, what are we calling these?
The community groups?
Yeah. It'd be awesome if you can make the community group live, because that's kind of...
That's a great connection.
And it's such some of the highest rated stuff we do is the community group. So it'd be awesome if you can make that live. Right. Maybe, on your lunch, or move your lunch around for a few days.
Right. And the community groups for the online experience are dependent on time zones too. So
that's right, huh?
Right. So people from all over the world join. So your 3 p.m. might be somebody's 8 a.m. and boom, you're in a perfect time slot for a community group with somebody on the different side of the planet.
Yeah, I'm glad we fixed that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really good.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be epic this year.
I'm so excited.
That's the season that we're in, and, listening to not just us talking, but also, we have so many prophets and prophetesses coming. The collective kind of revelatory nature of the meeting is really inspiring for me too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so fun. I love it. It's one of my favorite weeks of the year. It's always really, really good. Okay, another question about one of the million things you're involved in.
Oh,
I want to do BSSM. I want to come to Bethel, but I'm wondering if the online experience is worth it in versus the
in-person the online experience is amazing. I'll say this: the most miracles we have right now, counting.
Yeah, the
number. Is actually on the online school. Mm-hmm. I think that there is no replacement for on campus. I mean, But I'll tell you this, we didn't start online school ministry for years because I was the resistor.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't know
I didn't want to. And then probably 2 years before COVID, I just started feeling like we should build something. We spent $1 million on, on the infrastructure and the videos. And by the way, we're getting this amazing platform coming up for the learning platform. And then we put Steve and Ruth and Haley over it and a team, and it was so good. Like 800 people signed. I mean, we had thousands of people. 800 people attended the first year.
Yeah.
And like a part-time school and full-time school, and it's just been epic.
Right.
So
there's a lot of flexibility with it.
I know people like my generation probably wouldn't even think about going to an online school as thinking could take the place of on campus. But the next generation after me, they grew up with online everything. So they gel. They can have a relationship, and now we have a lot of older people. I think COVID inspired an older generation to join us. So honestly, it's been amazing.
Right, and it's really cool because people that may not be able to pick up and move their families or quit their job to come to Reading are able to still participate, and it's such a unique experience because you really get to learn these things and activate them right away because you're not in the small community here in school, but you're in the world. You're in you're in your day-to-day life where you can really implement those things right away. It's really profound.
So it's really good. It is not a B school, but I'll say this, the on-campus school is otherworldly.
Yeah.
It's I mean, you
Two
went
different
to it.
experiences. Oh yeah.
And my own grandkids went, and so I mean can you imagine growing up in your grandfather's house and obviously us, like Bill's kids, my kids, our grandkids, and you still want to go to the school ministry that they lead. It's the best compliment ever. So honestly, it'll change your life, no doubt. The best year, 2 years you'll ever spend is in school ministry, no doubt.
No doubt, the best year of my life. Okay, next question for you. Let's see. I got a bit carried away with the last. Okay, I think this will have to be our last question.
Okay, last question. Here we go.
Okay, how do you stay faith-filled when disappointment happens time and time again? It's a big one to land on.
I wouldn't know. Like, we've never had that happen.
Yeah, never any disappointment in your life. My goodness.
Well, is Jesus Savior or is He Lord? I mean, I have to actually believe that all things work together for good for those who love God. So, I mean, listen to Bill's message on Bethel TV or YouTube. I mean, it was beautiful. And the truth is that there's this idea that I think that people that sit on the fence or non-Christians have, like, that, well, those Christians have a lot of disappointment. Like, life has a lot of disappointment. I mean, I'd rather walk through disappointment with the Lord than be out there on my own and wondering what the hey, Right. So, but honestly, I just have to say that when my son went through a divorce, this is 15 years ago, and his wife went off with somebody else and had a baby. I have to tell you that that was the greatest disappointment I at that time had ever experienced. Besides, my father drowned when I was 3, but that was so many years before. And I thought my life was over. My grandson Elijah, who you married. I mean, he was, for 6 months he was saying, I don't want to live anymore. And so, then I now fast forward. So now you kind of, the end of the story. So you've seen, you're deeper into the book of their lives. And, Jay, my son, had a nervous breakdown through the whole thing. And it was a tough, 2 or 3 years for my kids, of course, for my grandkids. But they came out of it. He married an amazing woman who so mothered my kids in a way that I mean, I say to her, at least once a year, I take her aside and say, you changed our family. If it wasn't for you, I don't know what we'd do. And then, she gave him 2 more grandkids, gave us 2 more grandkids. And I don't want to say it's happily ever after because, obviously everybody has their challenges, but, that's just one example. Like, I had to wait long enough, but it turned out for good in the end. And my daughter had a nervous breakdown, couldn't come out of her room for a year. Again, this is right during that season. I'm like, okay, my life is over. And yet my daughter's doing great. She's just thriving, and she helps people that have a mental and emotional problems. Now that's kind of her main ministry. And so, your test becomes your testimony. And once you've been through something and you get all the way through it and the Lord heals you, that becomes a place of your strength. And it's just impossible on this side of the veil to avoid pain and suffering. It's just impossible.
Right.
We don't preach a lot. I mean, at Bethel, we don't preach a lot about suffering. And it's not because we don't think there is suffering. We just think that you don't have to actually tell people that suffering's a part of the gospel because you're suffering.
Right.
You often have to teach people that there's joy on the other side.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Do you want to say something about it?
I feel like you covered that. Like, yeah, I'm thinking, I mean, we've all experienced disappointments and trials and difficulties and things, and it's hard to see it sometimes when you're in the midst of it, that there's joy on the other side of it. But I think about, there's so many verses, obviously, that are, when you encounter various trials, consider them pure joy. And, and
James 1.
Yeah. And I think even it's Romans 5, and where it talks about, perseverance produces character, and character hope. Like, there's reasons.
I'm like, Lord, I don't really want character right now. I want fun.
I know, but that verse, man, I cling to that when I'm going through times that are so challenging. You think, okay, well, what's the purpose of this? Because if there's a purpose to it, I think I can do it. But if this is for nothing, I don't know about it. I don't know if I can do
that's powerful.
This
like tying purpose to your pain.
Yeah.
We actually did a Q&A on that a few months ago, tying purpose to your pain.
Yeah, I mean,
so important.
It's so important. Yeah, if you can realize that there's purpose in it, I feel like you can really work through a lot of stuff.
That's so good. Well, hey, we just want to thank you for being with us, and we want to thank you for your prayers for Benny and for Bill and for our our movement.
Yeah.
And we have been through a season where we were surviving on your prayers. So thank you for being with us, and thank you for some of you come every week, show up on here, and I'm noticing a lot of the same names. Thanks for following us, and thanks for your questions, and hopefully we helped inspire you.
Yes.
And we love it very much. Have a really great week, Lord. We pray for your success, and where anyone on here is finding so much pain. Lord, we pray that you would bring beauty out of ashes, and that you take the mourning, and that you bring pure joy.
Yeah.
God bless you. See you next week.
See you then.